Welcome on to this edition of Up. You might be wondering, what is that? Well, the good news is, before we get into today's podcast, we have got a couple of limited edition Coach Parry bib boards. Yep, that is it. It's little clips that'll help you clip your Comrades race number onto your vest. Not only have we got the Coach Parry ones, this is the only place you can get these. Comrades Marathon bib boards. So if you'd like to get your hands on bib boards for Comrades Marathon, that is so you don't prick yourself with safety pins, your number doesn't rip off. These things are amazing. All you need to do is head over to coachparry.com/bib. You can also click on the link that's in the description now or scan the QR code that is on screen right now. That's if you want to get your hands on Comrades Marathon bib boards. It'll allow you to safely and securely fasten your number to your race vest come Comrades race day. You can collect them at the Coach Parry stand. Just head over to coachparry.com/bib. Let's get straight into today's podcast. Welcome back on to this edition of Up. It's the second last one for Comrades 2024. I can't believe we are here. It is so close now. Only 2 weeks to go less than 2 weeks to go until race day. Next week, Sunday, is when it all goes down. On that little stretch of dirt between Pietermaritzburg and Durban. It is going to be amazing. And in today's podcast, we're going to be talking about setting the appropriate goal. I know you're going 2 weeks before we should have set the goal already, but there's some important things to cover in today's podcast. I've got the official Comrades Marathon coach with me once again, Lindsey Parry. It is very close now, isn't it?
Yeah, Brad, I'm nervous. I'm not running, but I'm nervous. It's an up run. It's very exciting. I have had a sense through this whole 6 months that this year is different. One of my friends reminded me about a saying that they had at school when someone was very impressed with a particular mate's cooking. A mate's mother's cooking, and they would say like this, it tastes like different gravy, man. We'd say it tastes like different gravy. That's the saying. And that's what this whole year has felt like. 2024 has felt like different gravy. I've had immense fun putting these together. I almost feel like I'm in the final podcast, but it's just, that's how I feel. 2 weeks to go. It's like, man, the work is done. I've spoken to so many people, so many nervous people. So I'm excited and nervous. I think that's really where we are. I literally can't believe it is now.
And I think that's pretty much the entire Comrades field as well. And we're also going to be talking today about getting to Durban or Pietermaritzburg, wherever you're sleeping, the few days leading up to Comrades Race Day, and then dealing with the Expo. I think that's what we're going to talk about today. Lindsey, before we get into setting goals, and that's because I think that's super important, let's talk a little bit about getting to KZN. I know there's a lot of people who are traveling a long way coming from outside of South Africa, but there's also a lot of people traveling internally in South Africa to get down to Comrades. Let's talk a little bit about making sure we get there in one piece and everything we need is with us. Let's touch on that.
Yeah, so I mean, the next 2 weeks really are about all the practicalities of race day. I think training wise, it's done. We've spoken through the taper. People know what they need to be doing over the next couple of weeks. And if you don't, just literally download the previous two podcasts. But we are down to the nuts and bolts and the practical stuff. So I don't want to talk too much about when's the ideal time to get there, because I don't want to add any kind of stress into this that's too late to do anything about. You've got your plans, you know when you're traveling down. I think we just need to make sure now, how do we make the best of our travels, that we get to Durban in the best shape that we can, and that we don't forget anything, we don't cause any additional stress. So after the long run, we spoke about the lists, and this is why we made the list. So you have a list now of everything that you need to have with you when you get to Durban, regardless of how far you're traveling or where you are traveling from. And so use that list. Make sure with 2 weeks to go now, that you gather everything together that you need and that you're going to use in race day, so that you know if you've run out of your favorite gel or the plasters that you normally use for your nipple chafe, whatever that is, you make sure you've got everything. You're not going to run out of Vaseline. You're not going to be running around in Durban looking for things. So that's what your list is for. Get all that stuff together. Make sure it's all in one place. Make sure it's easy and where you can pack it, so that when packing time comes, you can check that list and make sure you pack everything. Now, if you are not driving down, if you're flying from anywhere, whether it's a low domestic flight, whether it's an international flight, what is super important is that the things that are critical for your success on race day, you need to fly with those things. Okay? That must be with you. If you're coming from India or from Japan or somewhere where you aren't going to get the foods that you're used to eating and that you know that you need to operate with, that includes that stuff. So make sure you have a travel bag that literally has your everything that you need for race day. Okay.
And that's, sorry to interrupt, Lindsey, that's in your hand luggage. That's not going into the cargo hold.
Yeah, so if I didn't say that, somebody...
You said it's flying with you. So it's flying
Yeah,
in.
and I meant flying with you, as in you're going to make sure that goes onto the aeroplane with you into the cabin. Yes, so absolutely, you're going to pack that into a bag. That is what you are going to use. So now you can relax, and you know that everything can get lost. You can buy yourself a new toothbrush, but the things that you need to make race day successful, they are with you. They are going to arrive in Durban with you. No question. That's really, really important. And then while you are traveling, long haul flights, if you're driving a long distance, then what you need to do is stop. Okay, if you're flying, you're not going to stop, but you need to get out of your seat regularly. If you are traveling down, make sure that you take those regular stops every hour and a half to 2 hours. Pull over, get out the car, walk around, have a gentle stretch. Make sure that you stay mobile. Like one of the quite common things that I see at Comrades is that people who travel long distance flights and driving, that they get ITB issues on race day, which compromises ultimately what they are targeting. And that comes from two things really: that you're running on camber that you're not accustomed to, and the second and controllable factor is that you get very tight hip flexors from being stuck in a seated position, be it on an airplane or be it driving, and your level of activity has come right down. So you're also not exercising as much, so that your hips can open up again and that you stretch afterwards. So get up, move around. If you're on an airplane, when you're awake, get up regularly. Obviously, you've got to try and get some sleep and sleep on the airplane. And I would actually have a chat to my doctor if I was you and see if there's some sleeping aids that can help you, so you can have a good night's sleep if you are sleeping long haul and there's time zone changes. But when you're awake, move regularly, stretch, keep your hips nice and open. Make sure you've got everything with you that you need to travel down with, and that it's in your possession or just above you in the aeroplane or in your little private cubicle if you're lucky enough to fly business or first class. But yeah, those are the real important aspects: list, comfort, make sure you arrive in Durban with everything you need.
And if you're anything like my wife, you have lists of lists. So you've got a race day list, and then you've got a list for the stuff that you need outside of race day. You've got a list for what you need afterwards, and then you have a list of all those lists. So you've just got to make sure that you don't forget anything. And then you forget your list at home and then you're stuffed. So make sure you don't do that. That's super, super important. Lindsey, let's talk about the expo. The Comrades Expo is always great fun. We're going to be there, by the way, before we get into sort of how to manage it. But I'm talking about we as in Team Coach Perry. We've got a stand. It is going to be amazing. It always is. And I know a lot of people have been listening to these podcasts and watching the videos on YouTube. So we love meeting all the runners. So I'm going to ask you now, if you are listening or watching this, please come by. We're going to be at Durban all 4 days. Most of the team will be there most of the time. Obviously, we're going to be working in shifts, but please do come say hi, have a photo, give us a high five. Like, we really do enjoy meeting everyone. And just so you know, you get to know us really well, but we can't see out the other side. So it's probably going to be the first time we're meeting you. So come and introduce yourself. Don't, like, I know it's weird, but yeah, we generally don't know you. And we've seen, Lindsey, like you and I were on the side of the road at Two Oceans a while ago, and just the amount of people that recognize us from these videos at Oceans, and I mean, Comrades is even bigger. So it's going to be amazing. Let's talk the expo. How do you survive it? I think is the important one. Like, what are some of the things to do, and then we'll get into the what to avoid in just a moment.
Yeah. So the earlier you come into Durban, the more time you can spend at the expo. I think that's really the first bit that I would add in there. And also, the more spare time you will have to spend at the expo, because if you come to the expo in the early days, then registration is super fast. You just shoot through, and yeah, that means you're not spending any time standing in one place, and making your legs tired while you're standing in queues. And then that does mean you can really go around and have a look and go into the Mr. Price memorabilia stand and look at what they've got on offer. And if you're there early, you also get the first choice on sizes, so they're not starting to run out of things. But you really do get to then go and look at all the new kind of exciting, cutting edge running tech, etc., that is on show. Similarly, the sponsors provide massage at the expo, and if you're getting in there 2-3 days before race day, you can also afford to go in and have a really gentle flush out, especially if you've traveled a long way to get there. And those are the kind of things that, as we get closer to race day, you don't want to go in. If you've never had a massage before, you don't want to go and have a massage the day before you run Comrades. So again, those are the types of things that you can afford to do. Again, the earlier you get in also means you can spend more time talking to all the exhibitors, because you're really not in a rush. You also, there's not going to be nearly as many people, so your risk of getting sick is gonna be lower. So yeah, just if you're in there earlier, come in, take your time, enjoy the expo. The closer you come into Durban to race day, the less time you want to spend there. That doesn't mean that you can't really soak up the atmosphere, and you can't get some of the excitement of all the new products, etc. Just means you want to plan things maybe a little bit better. Leave a little bit of time for a walk around so you can see what's new, but also jump onto the website and see who is there, where they are, so that if you know that you have to get to the expo, for example, and get your favorite gel, and that's where you get the best price, for example, where they are, and get in there and get what you need. But yeah, I think the most important thing here is that we don't want to spend hours on our feet the day before the race, but we can afford to do that 2 to 3 days before the race, spend a little bit more time on our feet, and then the day before try and manage it so that we in the expo for maximum an hour, just over an hour, including your time that you are standing in the queue. And then I've just said a few times, new products, exciting products. So that's cool. Learn about them, even take samples, but please don't fall into the marketing hype of any one of those things being like this huge thing that's going to make a massive difference for you on race day. Okay, nothing new on race day. So all that stuff, you stick it in your little goodie bag that you get at the expo. And I said a few podcasts ago, 25% of the Comrades field will only do one Comrades. They'll hopefully do other races, but that means that 75% of the field are going to keep coming back. Okay, so you're going to have lots of time to try those products out and use them at a different Comrades, just not not at this one. Okay, nothing new on race day.
We'll get back to this week's episode in just a moment, but I have got a pretty cool tool to share with you, the 2024 Comrades Marathon Up Run Finish Time Calculator. All you need to do is plug your marathon time in. If you want to get access to this, all you need to do is head over to coachparry.com/time and you can check it out. You can also scan the QR code that's on screen right now. That's coachparry.com/time. So easy to use. All you need to do is put your best marathon time in the last 12 months into this calculator, and it'll tell you what your predicted Comrades Marathon finish time is. So let's say, for example, you ran a 3:50. Let's call it a 3:56 marathon, right? It'll tell you that your predicted Comrades Marathon finish time this year, we've taken into account the slightly shorter route as well, 9:45:17. And that is amazing because that then allows you to create your own pacing band for a 9:45 Comrades. All you need to do is head over to coachparry.com/time. You can scan the QR code on screen right now as well. Once you've worked out what your predicted finish time is on that page, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll be able to purchase your Comrades Marathon pacing band, which you can then pick up at the Coach Parry stand at the Expo in Durban this year as well. So go check it out, coachparry.com/time. Yeah, Lindsey, it's also not just the samples you get from exhibitors. It's obviously in the goodie bag. There will be some free goodies in there too. And I remember a couple of years ago, I'm not going to mention any company names, but there was a major florist in South Africa that was a partner of Comrades. And like when you buy a bunch of flowers, they normally put a little sachet of plant food with the flowers. And for some reason, they put sachets of plant food in the goodie bags. And there were guys sitting at the tables at the little food court going, oh, I wonder what this is. And they were putting it into water and drinking it. And yeah, definitely nothing new on race day, because I can tell you now for free, even if you tried it, plant food's not going to help you at Comrades. That's for sure. Some free advice for you on this podcast. Lindsey, let's talk about the driving the route. This is one of my favorite subjects, and I know a lot of people swear by it. I personally never wanted to drive the route. I was scared enough. I didn't need to be more scared. What's your thought on driving the Comrades route before race day?
Yeah, so I think you're right there, Brad. I think your personality maybe should come into the decision, but the first decision is back to similar to the expo. I mean, if you're coming into Comrades a few days before, then you've got some time. I would not spend the day before Comrades cooped up in a car. I mean, I was just talking about, about 10 minutes ago, I was talking about how ITB is a thing that just suddenly pops out of nowhere at Comrades because of tight hip flexors. Squishing yourself into a car for 3 or 4 hours, because that's what it takes to drive the whole route the day before. That's what you're going to do. You're going to give yourself really tight, compromised hip flexors. So I definitely wouldn't do it the day before. If you're coming into Durban a couple of days before the race, then I would go on your kind of personality. If you're a naturally very conservative person, you run very conservatively, you know how to hold yourself back, you're very clear in your plan, I don't think it's necessary to run Comrades. You know, what you learn by driving Comrades and driving the up run is that there's a lot of hills for a car. So it is going to push up your anxiety big time. So if you're really conservative, you know what you're doing, you know it's going to be hard, you go in, you stick to your race plan, that's it. If you are a person that struggles to hold back, you're always pushing yourself too hard, then it's possibly not a bad thing. I mean, I'm not joking when I tell you, when you drive the Comrades up run route, it's fearsome. You drive the car and you go like, wow, when are these hills going to end when you're driving in the car? So it's a very good way for you to go, geez, this is exactly why Lindsey and every coach that I hear talk is saying it's so important to hold back in the first 36K. So yeah, if you are that kind of person, then I would go and do it. I think if I had to do most of my training in a very, very flat place, and I've been hearing about these hills for weeks and months, I'm not sure I'd want to see them until I'm on them. So then I probably also would just be like, I'm going to do everything I can to hold myself back enough, but I don't need to have my last 2 nights of sleep ruined by seeing what I'm actually up against. So yeah, those are kind of the decisions I would make doing it. I personally have never driven the route for my own benefit, but I have taken some athletes out and driven the route. And yeah, it's their responses to that have helped me realize who I should take on the route and who I shouldn't take on the route.
Are those the athletes you didn't like, that you didn't want to work with the following year? Is that what the plan was? You took them with. So just to summarize what Lindsey said, if you're a masochist, drive the route. If you're not a masochist, don't. That's pretty much it in summary. Lindsey?
Yeah, and the one athlete that I took on the route was Caroline Cherry, and I did it so that I could really get her to hold back the next day, and then she went out 2015, won the race, and ran the fastest average time for the up run, but it was 800 meters it was 800 meters longer that year, so it wasn't a new best time for Comrades, but it certainly was the fastest minutes per K that had ever been run. So in her case, it worked.
All right, that segues beautifully into the next thing we wanted to talk about, which was pacing and pacing charts. There are pacing charts, or will be pacing charts, available at the expo. We're going to have at the Coach Perry stand, so definitely come by and pick up your pacing chart there. Lindsey, what's the story with pacing charts? Are they good things? How do you use them? What's the deal?
Brad, they are excellent, because the one thing about Comrades is if you fail to plan, you're literally planning to fail. You cannot run. Only the most experienced runners can hope to have any idea of where they are, what they're doing, and how they need to do it without a pacing chart. So I think what's super important is that you need to know what you are going after. And so we really want to have a good idea of what we're capable of on race day. So the rule of thumb is 2.5 times marathon. And I had a little algorithm that balanced that out for the up and the down. But with this literally being the shortest Comrades ever in history, the 2.5 times marathon actually works perfectly. So that's, take your marathon time 2.5 times. That's going to give you a very good idea, like a 5 to 7 minute window of what you are capable of on race day. And the goal is important. Yeah, there might be some mitigating factors in why you didn't achieve the best marathon that you're capable of. In that case, that's what I'm here for. My team and I can then help you just be sure that the goal is the right goal for you. But I can tell you now, 9.9 times out of 10, whatever marathon you managed in qualifying times 2.5, that's going to give you your finishing time at Comrades. And that's what you want to grab as your pacing chart. And then the pacing chart is so important because it's going to keep you honest. If you are ahead of that pacing chart, you can tell yourself what you like, that you're feeling amazing, that it's uncomfortable running slower, whatever lies you want to tell yourself, that's your truth is the pacing chart. And if you are on your pacing chart, you can give yourself the absolute best chance you've got of running an excellent day. And if you ignore the pacing chart and get ahead of it and go through every minute that you go through halfway faster than 3 minutes ahead of your pacing chart. So that's kind of your 3.5 minutes at a push faster than your pacing chart. That's your margin of error at Comrades. Every minute faster than that, you are steering 8 minutes slower in the second half. So for every minute that you're too fast, you will get punished by Comrades to the tune of 8 minutes per minute. So if you go through 10 minutes too fast, you literally are giving yourself an hour and a half penalty in the second half. And so for anybody that's targeting faster than 10 hours, 10 minutes too fast through halfway is literally playing with your ability to finish the race. So that's why the pacing chart is absolutely key. And I'll argue on the up run, even more important, because The difference between the up and the down is that there's so much climbing in the up run in the first half that it can leave you unable to run because your legs are so tight, and then you're in real trouble. Okay, the downs, and this is the really good side of the up run, is that because the downs are so runnable, on the down run, the opposite is true, is that the downs are so severe that the downs can leave you unable to run. But on the up run, the downs are so runnable. The gradients of those downs are really, really good. If you are running, you're making up time. And that's why on the up run, with a proper running and a proper plan, you can literally run a fantastic second half. You don't have to be fresh. You're not going to be fresh. So the majority of the climbing is going to be done by 50 Ks. So you're still going to have 36 kilometers of running, or 30 that you need to run. There's just no way you're going to feel amazing at 50 Ks, but you can feel good, and you can feel tired but strong. But if you go into those 36 Ks and you've finished because you've ignored your pacing chart for the first 45 Ks, then you just are in big trouble on that run.
Yeah, Lindsey, it's amazing how you talk about you don't have to be fast in that second half. I mean, that's been my experience. If you get to that point in the race and you can run, you don't need to run fast. You just need to be able to run. You make up so much time in that final third on the up run, but that's only if you behave yourself in the first 2/3. So, it is crucial. Something that you always explain, and I always laugh when you do it because it is funny, but it's not funny, is when people look at those pacing charts, because we've said it so many times in the build-up to this year's race, is that your Comrades race pace is generally slower than what most people actually train for. So that when you look at your pacing chart, you go, well, that's like slower than I've been training at, which is not ideal. And people always say to you, but I can't run that slow. And then you look at their results from the previous years and explain that to us.
Yeah, so that is one of my, maybe I've got a bit of a sick personality, but often when people come for advice, and it's because they've had unsuccessful, they finished, so at least they have a medal, but in terms of their goal and what they're capable of and what they'd like to achieve at Comrades, they keep missing their goal. And the most common one there is the Bull Rowan, actually. Just so many people that are desperate for Bull Rowan, know they're capable of, but they just keep missing it. And then I will sit with them and go, look, you've run too fast. So I'm looking at it and going, you've run miles too fast. And that's when they'll say, no, but it's uncomfortable and it feels so easy. I can't run that. I physically can't run that slowly. And then I'm going, but look at what you did in the last 30 Ks. You telling me you can't run that slowly, but in the last 30 Ks, you are running even slower. So if you can't run that slowly, how is it possible that you can run even slower? And so you can either run slowly enough and choose to do it, or you can let Comrades reduce you to a place where you can't even run at the pace that you need to run. You are forced to run even slower.
So that is so important. Choosing the correct goal, Lindsey, and it's pretty simple. It's 2.5 times your marathon. That's it. So if you qualified in 4 hours, 2.5 times that is 10 hours. That is your Comrades goal. There's a little bit of simple maths, but it's easy to get carried away and go, oh, I can go faster than that. 2.5 times your marathon time. It's easy peasy. That's what you're going for. Lindsey, I am so excited to get down. You wanted to add something?
Yeah, I want to add one thing, and that's why I say it gives you to 5 to 7 minutes, because I know now there's a few people that have just gone and done the maths, and they did 4 hours 49 and a few seconds. But if you put 450 in and do that calculation, it gives you a 12:04 finishing time. So yeah, these things often don't work perfect for those in the extremes, but I think that segues me into what I wanted to really say about that, and that is why it is so important to listen to our final podcast, because there's a lot of things that point to you struggling to finish if you are in H. But next week, we are going to give you the golden key that unlocks the door and makes sure that if you are a 4-hour, 49, 59 marathoner and you're starting in H, we are going to give you the secret to finishing Comrades.
Yep. So make sure you join us then. And that's not just applicable to the 4:49, 59 qualifiers. If you want to save yourself 20 minutes on Comrades Race Day, whether you're going for a Bull Rowan, whether you're going for Robert Machali, whether you're going for a bronze, make sure you download and watch next week's podcast. It is one that you don't want to miss. Lindsey, we are going to be recording that one and then jumping in the car and heading to Durban. We can't wait. We are looking forward to it. It's going to be tons of fun, and we look forward to seeing you at the expo and high-fiving you, having a chat, settling the nerves, and then we will see you on race day as well. So from the two of us and the entire team here at Coach Parry, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to chatting again soon. Cheers.